Dan, I'll have to tell you, I'm getting closer and closer to becoming a vegetarian every day because I'm just...
Really?
It's hurting my soul.
So it seems pretty obvious that Ethan has been probably thinking quite a lot about this issue in his own private time.
Sometimes I look at animals and I'm like, the cows, I'm like, you're so cute, I can't believe we kill you. And then I see my mother's dog, Harold.
Dairy and eggs are the same issue. They are exploitative and immoral industries. Now,
I think that killing the chicken is probably worse than just taking its periods. I'm just gonna be absolutely real with you.
fish are still more sentient than plants, which are not sentient.
I'm understanding what he's saying. What he's saying is that as long as it is a sentient creature, you shouldn't eat it. And so my solution to that is to breed cows that are just, they come out brain dead. What do you have to say about lesbians? Do you hate lesbians? Because based on everything you're saying, you don't like lesbians. All right, let's get into this next segment. We just came off the Tyler Oliveira segment, first vintage, and that was a trip. So yeah, this is the third H3 video since he's been on break. It's so silly that I don't know why don't just make it when he's on, whatever. Anyway, good content for us, you know what I mean, fun stuff. So yeah, this is called H3 Crew Have Disgusting Response to Animal Rights Discussion. So you guys know how much I love animals. All right, I used to date one, so let's watch it.
Something that I found to be really, I want to show you guys something that I found to be really interesting. Ethan Klein from the H3H3 podcast
H3
was recently talking about meat on his podcast. And the conversation that he was having, I think, really shines a light on what it's like for someone who is struggling to grapple with the ethics of what it is that we do to animals. It's also super interesting because of the
I don't care that we kill them. We should probably do it nicer, I guess.
reactions
Maybe give them like a vacation or an Xbox or a PlayStation 5 so they can chill.
and comments from those on Ethan's team. The podcast is comprised of different members and they all have an active involvement in the podcast. So what I want to
That's probably why they're comprised of those members. Yeah, that makes sense.
do in today's video is analyze the clip in question, analyze what it is that Ethan says, but also analyze what it is that those on his team have to say as well. But before we jump into the video, I just want to take a moment now to tell you about the partner of this video, which is Brilliant.
Whoa, you guys know the deal. When we react to someone's video, we show their advertisement. It's just good form. It's just good nature. It's just good form and good nature. Tip of the hat.
Brilliant is an interactive and engaging learning platform which has thousands of lessons about topics such as mathematics, data analysis, programming, and more, and which have been created by an award-winning team of academics and professionals. Brilliant improves the learning process
What award did they win, huh? I don't care.
by making the lessons
silly.
hands-on and engaging, meaning the lessons are enjoyable as well as effective. For example, Brilliant has a growing number of programming courses that are a great way to learn all about coding and how to use programming software, and which will also give you the skills to even be able to write complex programs yourself. So to try everything that Brilliant has to offer for
Yeah, well, you're not factoring in the fact that I'm dumb as shit, so it wouldn't work.
free for a full 30 days, and to also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, you can either go to the URL
Waiting for my sponsor. Once I have a sponsor, which should probably be my own merchandise, I'll just put it in like the corner of the screen.
brilliant.org
No, we don't skip ads, dude. Stop.
/earthling
Stop.
ads. Click the link in my description
You can't come in here and call me cringe and then tell me to skip the ads, okay?
or scan the QR code on the screen now. So a huge thank you to Brilliant for partnering with me on today's video. And now let's take a look at that H3H3 clip.
This guy's vegan, I think. He obviously needs the money anyway for the ad.
Dan, I'll have to tell you, I'm getting fucking closer and closer to becoming a vegetarian every day because I'm just...
Really?
It's hurting my soul. It hurts my soul. And I'm not... Look, I'm not judging anyone. Obviously, I still eat animals.
Know your way around some meat.
But as a future vegetarian...
That was funny. I've never heard Dan be funny before.
So it seems pretty obvious that Ethan has been probably thinking quite a lot about this issue in his own private time. But what
Yeah, you know, sometimes I look at... Here's the thing. Sometimes I look at animals and I'm like, the cows, I'm like, you're so cute, I can't believe we kill you. And a lot of times, not even just kill you, inhumanely. You know, it's like maybe they die fast, but they live to be food. And that's what a sad life, especially if you were aware of that. And then I see my mother's dog, Harold. And every time I walk into that house, all he does is bark, 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 bark at me over and over and over again. I sit down. I'll put my hands out. He lets me pet him. I rub his stomach. I rub his back. He makes the dog gestures of like, I love this. He sprawls out. He wants me to keep petting him when I stop. He's like, no, come back, over and over and over again. And then I stand up and that dog barks like I'm a fucking demon. Like I'm a demon. And I go, fuck animals. Save the chickens. Save the cows. Kill this dog for food. Specifically. So, yeah, that's it.
What I think is quite notable is that he uses the phrase eating animals, which seems to suggest that he is at least beginning to make some kind of ethical connection. Now, obviously, it's...
Listen, if we had lab-grown meat or crickets, I heard crickets or something. I was talking to P, some, a mod of mine. I was talking to her husband, fiance, who play World of Warcraft together. And he was talking about how like certain types of crickets can be a very high energy source, protein source, and they have less of a carbon footprint. They don't fart the way that cows fart, apparently. And I'm like, yeah, I could do some cricket meal, mash it up into like a tasty thing, like a Spam. But you got to provide the alternative protein source of like crickets or whatever, or lab-grown meat or something first. And you got to make it affordable too. Or else why the fuck would I buy it? I'd rather just have the cow suffer. I'm just kidding. That's terrible. I feel bad. But, I got to eat meat. It's good for you. It's healthy, especially chicken. It's healthy protein, meat protein. I don't feel like eating fucking soy burgers. Fuck you.
It's important to note, vegetarians still fund slaughterhouses. This is because all dairy cows and egg-laying hens end up in slaughterhouses when their production of milk and eggs declines.
Yeah, but I think that food goes to Taco Bell. I think Taco Bell uses the old hens and the old cow. That's why the meat tastes a little funky. Other places use the fresh bulls, you know what I'm saying? Unless those bulls are used for breeding. But they don't even get to fuck the animals. They just harvest its cum, shove it into other cows. That's terrible. Well, I guess he's getting jerked off at least, so that's something. But that's terrible,
This is an important thing that...
There's actually a book on TikTok. I'm oversharing. There's a book on TikTok about how a girl falls in love with a humanoid cow that she milks. It's a job. They fall in love. He's a big cow penor. So it's pretty interesting that I would even bring that up. This video is sponsored by. I'm just kidding.
Dan, who is a vegetarian who Ethan is speaking to in this clip, should also bear in mind as well.
Because I knew there's a reason I didn't like this guy. Fucking Daniel. What are you doing?
You know what Daniel backwards is? Fucking gay vegetarian is what it stands for. You know what my first name is? Daniel with 2 N's. So actually, pretty cool fucking guy is what it is backwards.
Just meat that's the problem. Dairy and eggs are the same issue. They are exploitative and immoral industries. Now,
I think that killing the chicken is probably worse than just taking its periods. I'm just going to be absolutely real with you. I think that's a little bit different. So probably not so bad. I got to lay an egg and then somebody eats it, whatever. They're feeding me. Not so bad. They're going to kill me with knives. Probably worse. Might be exploitative, but certainly better than killing them, honestly.
Actually, the practices that take place on dairy and egg farms every single day are among the worst that take place on any type of farm. So really the only ethical conclusion is veganism.
My name's not Daniel.
The cows. When we drove to San Jose, we drove by a cow farm. Is that what they're called?
Sure. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
It was devastating.
Those cows are relatively okay because they have they're like pasture. They get to roam around on the mountainside and eat grass and like live a somewhat normal life.
They didn't look so happy and lively, but
I don't think
I'm happy to hear that.
There are 2 types of ranches that you'll see driving through California.
Yeah.
The ones that you're describing, Ethan, yeah, you'll just see
I wouldn't because I don't drive through California because I'm not dumb, Fuck California.
cows like on the hillside. And
Well, unless I was going to Disney, of course.
you're right. Like that seems like a relatively good life. The one that I think that Lean is talking about is the giant field with like 50,000 cows packed shoulder to shoulder.
They were
50,000
and some parts.
Now, of course, it is true that there are different systems of animal farming, and some systems of animal farming are more unethical and do cause more harm. However,
which means that some are more ethical, but he didn't want to say it like that because he doesn't want to say that like a version of it can be ethical. Right, so he's like, if it's more unethical, basically, right?
but this isn't what's relevant. It doesn't matter if one system of animal farming could be called more ethical than another.
It actually does, because the reality is that the way that we move as a society is slowly and in a particular direction and safely. So we're not going to go from eating, cows and chickens, okay, and whatever, whales, I don't know what else we eat. Salmon? I don't know. We're not going to go from that to eating plants instantaneously. Quite literally, we don't have the infrastructure to support that because we would need a lot more soy farms. Okay, we'd have to, we'd lose a significant amount of jobs for different industries, right? So it's never going to happen. So acknowledging that there are some practices that are better than others, that's how we will shift. This is not going to happen tomorrow. This is going to happen over decades, where it's slowly going to shift the way that we consume different products. So it is quite literally relevant. It is very important as well.
Because we don't have to support any system of animal farming. So the question is not exploiting and slaughtering animals more ethical than exploiting and slaughtering animals? Because whether or not they come from...
Depends on if your ethics considers cows to matter that much. So I think that caring about animals, unironically, is a privilege, right? I mean, that I have as well. But like if you're a poor person, you don't have the privilege to care because like food that engages in more exploitation, realistically speaking, is cheaper, and you just need to live. So, for me, I don't have that excuse. I'm just saying that makes sense.
quote unquote better farm, well, they end up in the same slaughterhouses. So just because these animals have maybe a little bit more land or a little bit more space than others doesn't change the fact that many of the worst practices.
Well, it kind of does. Like if I knew I was going to die in 10 years, but you're like, hey, you get to chill, and that's cool. But if you're like, no, we're going to fuck you, but not literally, that sucks. So
still inflicted upon them, and they still end up in the same slaughterhouses being killed in the exact same ways. So is it more ethical to kill or not to kill? Is it more humane to force animals into
depends on what we're killing, dude.
slaughterhouses or to not force animals into?
What if we're killing terrorists, right? What if we're killing invaders from outer space that have come here to subjugate us? It's a good question.
Slaughterhouses. This is one of the
Excellent question, actually.
major flaws with the term ethical meat. In many ways, it almost presents a kind of false dichotomy, where it presents us with, I suppose, an idea that we have to eat meat, and therefore
I don't know. My mom taught me consent, so ethical meat is the only meat that I consume.
choosing meat that came from a farm that is quote unquote better, therefore means that is ethical meat. But we don't have to eat meat at all. We don't have to fund slaughterhouses and animal exploitation. And because we don't have to fund these things, that means that there is no such thing as ethical meat. The only ethical option is to not fund these things happening to animals.
I was a straight vegetarian for like 10. I started doing fish again a couple years ago.
Fish they don't have any feelings.
That's why I say fish, yeah, who cares?
Is it less harmful to eat fish? I don't know. Fish are dumb. They're idiots.
That's true. Fish are very stupid.
They're dumber. They're definitely dumber and more like...
Oh, you think fish are dumb, so it's okay to eat them, Ethan? Do you think that we should eat people in comas too? Huh? What if someone has a traumatic brain injury, Ethan? Oh, you think we should eat them? That's the energy I'm expecting next. But I'm sure I'm going to be wrong, honestly. I'm just being silly.
They're just more... They're like less... How do I word this? I don't think there's a lot of awareness in fish.
You think they're less alive?
To an extent, yeah.
Yeah, what if we just like train, we just have like breed cows to be just dumb. They come out and they're just like drooling idiot machines. Will it be ethical? Thank you for the 14 months small guy from Priscilla Pixels. Interesting stuff. Great moves, Papa. Keep it up. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you think they lack a soul?
Advanced mammals, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. They had this controversy recently about lobsters being more aware than they thought. I forget how they phrased it.
Lobsters are sea bugs. I don't care if we eat those.
Yeah,
A lobster seems
They know
more
what's going down when they see that water boiling.
Dude, I
They know.
hate watching those videos. I see them on TikTok, I see them in the feed, and every time I say, don't stop showing me this shit, please, of people putting live animals in boiling water.
Blood boiling.
I have devastating
I watched videos of dogs getting put into boiling water. It was actually horrible. This was years ago. It's terrible stuff.
news.
Uh-oh.
All the cows are dead?
No,
Terrible news, guys. Hassan's dog died.
It's over.
it's worse.
They've gone extinct.
Fish have feelings.
No.
It says that fish
shit.
feel a range of emotions, including fear and distress.
How do they know
And
that?
they also have pain receptors.
Damn.
Must admit, I do
yeah, but they're not the same as ours.
find it pretty alarming that it's nearly 2025 and people still seem to think that fish are essentially inanimate floating objects in our oceans. I think sometimes as vegans we can have maybe a misguided belief that people are more informed and more educated about these issues than they actually are.
Didn't they just prove themselves wrong, though? So it does not mean that they are actually more informed.
It seems like people's perception of fish is a prime example of this. In the
It's got good vitamins in it. It's good for you. Have fish twice a week.
description below, I will link a selection of different resources. But basically, it's nearly 2025. Can we just move past this reductive and archaic conversation about whether or not fish feel pain? No, obviously,
I agree. Here's what you should do because I know we have a lot of these conversations. We engage in the emotional argument of like, oh, animals, we shouldn't be eating them. And then we try to intellectualize it. We're like, well, but the animal maybe isn't that smart, or maybe it doesn't understand fear, or it doesn't understand pain, and it doesn't know it's going to die. So if we treat it well when it's alive, we do all these like leaps and bounds, and we try to come up with these humane perspectives to come up with. And the way I look at it is it's a fucking cow. Kill it and eat it. Okay, fuck the cow. Make it come. It makes the meat taste better. And eat it. I'm just kidding. I feel kind of bad, but I don't think about it. So yeah.
obviously Ethan is being a little insensitive when he refers to fish as being dumber. I think the word
Well, they are literally fucking dumber. Like that is the truth. Let's be real.
that he's looking for is probably sentient.
Dumb. They're dumb.
But what I think is quite interesting about the conversations around
Fish can't even write.
on fish is how with fish, we essentially group together tens of thousands of different species and refer to them as if they are all the same. Now, obviously with mammals, we don't do this. We recognize that different species of mammals are very different from one another. Humans are, of course, a species of mammal. But with fish, we basically group them all together, view them all as being the same, and then remove any individuality from them. But as soon as we recognize that what we do to all of these different types of fish is an ethical issue, we realize that we have a huge moral problem that needs solving. And
instead of giving a fuck about fish, why don't we start with cows? Because as a human being, as a mammal myself, I have the ability to empathize with a cow and a dog and a chicken and other animals before a fish. Okay, I don't swim around the ocean. I don't shit eggs out of my ass or penis. I don't just come on eggs. I have sex. So, let's start with humanizing the cows, the other animals, because we could start there, and I could see I could be like, yeah, I could see your point on that, and then let's move on. Then we can move on to the fish later, okay? Especially if you've ever watched this one video of these two dudes that go and get a catfish and just starts fucking them. It's like, wow, maybe fish are people too. You know what I mean?
Need solving fast.
Fish or fleshlight?
We farm hundreds of billions of fish every single year for food, and we remove as many as 2.3 trillion fish from our oceans every single year as well.
Yeah, but if we didn't eat them, then they wouldn't be born in the first place. Now we have to have a philosophical conversation. Is it better to live through suffering or not live at all? I guess it's probably better to not live at all, because I'm an abortion supporter. So
the scale of this is absolutely staggering.
Whoa, that's not a scale, that's a net. What are you talking about?
The enormity of suffering is almost incomprehensible. It far outweighs the number of terrestrial animals that we farm, and we farm them by the tens of billions and cause death to them by the tens of billions. So is it less harmful to eat fish? Well, from an environmental perspective, and importantly from an ethical perspective, the answer is a resounding no. But let's circle back to the sentience point that Ethan is trying to make, because clearly sentience is a huge determining factor when it comes to ascertaining the ethics of what we do to animals. So let's say that we definitively knew that all fish are less sentient than the land animals that we consume. Does that make eating fish moral? Well, no, because even in such a situation, fish are still more sentient than plants, which are not sentient. So if we're creating a gradient of moral worth based on...
I'm understanding what he's saying. What he's saying is that as long as it is a sentient creature, you shouldn't eat it. And so my solution to that is to breed cows that are just, they come out, you know what I'm saying? They come out with the bad words. They're just brain dead. They come out no sentience. They just come out, they're just drooling. Okay? Boom. Done. Solved the problem instantaneously. I've solved the issue here, guys.
On sentience, well, that would still lead us to veganism anyway, because out of all edible life, plants would be at the bottom of that gradient. So Ethan might be somewhat insensitively demeaning fish, but he's actually inadvertently saying that the sentience of animals is what makes exploiting them immoral. So he's actually making an argument for veganism.
But think about that delicious, well-seasoned steak you take off the grill, cut it up, got some good juice in it.
My wife's making steak tonight.
Medium rare.
Natural juices.
It is good, but Zach, if you start thinking this came from an actual cow that lived its life, was born in into basically slavery.
Survival of the fittest.
And into
Who's that guy? He's fucking bad. I like that guy. I actively like that guy. I'm gonna do a chart one day. Somebody put together one of those A to S tier lists or whatever, and or not even an A to S tier. We're gonna grade them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that for all the H3 crew, and I'm gonna do that, and I'll do that soon, and I'm gonna rate that guy number 1. Probably nothing that he could ever say or do at this point would ever piss me off. He's number 1. He's my favorite. His name is Zachary. That's number 1, 100%. So far, because I don't know all their names, it's gonna be Zach, Ela, because she's kind of bad. I'm not gonna lie to you. Maybe Ethan next, probably his kid over Ethan, the dog, then Ethan, the Bo Blacks plushie before Ethan, maybe. Yeah, okay.
Literal Holocaust, and then fucking was lived its life in despair, was grown to just enough to where its meat was of value, and then slaughtered and cut into pieces and sent to us. It's fucking vile, man.
So
if you feel this way though, Ethan, I will say maybe you should stop eating animals, because I don't prescribe too much morality to animals. I just try not to think about it because it's kind of sad. But if you're like, oh, this is horrible torture, Holocaust, terrible abuse, if that's what your moral code's telling you it is, then you should not be eating But this might be the best criticism of Ethan in right now in the content in the Ethan break content cycle. Okay.
Zach, the person in this clip, is playing the role of the defensive and, dare I say, obnoxious meat eater very well, isn't he?
Yes.
I think it's just really sad
Based.
that Ethan is trying to express something and something he's clearly feeling a lot of emotions around and is clearly trying to grapple with. It's just sad that his friend is...
Well, yeah, but in Ethan's defense, he's lost a lot of weight, so his hormones are changing because like now he's starting to produce more testosterone, which means your body tries to balance out its testosterone and estrogen. So he's also producing more estrogen. So he's on his fucking period. So he's sitting here crying about fucking cows. We cut him up. Shut the fuck up. No, I'm just kidding.
actually belittling his emotions and trying to make light of something that Ethan is clearly trying to say is serious and something that's actually upsetting him. But good on Ethan for pushing back and for framing the conversation in a really effective way by saying these animals are sentient, conscious, feeling individuals. Why don't we think about them, who they are? The fact that we deny them the right to their own body, to their own lives. We deny them any autonomy. We exploit them and we take their lives from them for something as trivial as taste.
I look at my...
Well, just to be clear, I just want to be very clear. That is a little bit of a down, but we don't just do it for taste. We do it for literal sustenance. Like our bodies desire and crave, especially men, protein. Now, do we have the technology to discover alternative sources of protein through the usage of different vitamins and all that? Absolutely. And I'm morbidly obese and I have the money to do it. So I have no excuse. But there's a lot of people who do not have the financial access to these things. And so to say it's just taste, that's not true. That's a very privileged perspective. This is more of a first world, upper middle class and above argument. That's who all it would really apply to. I wouldn't apply this to somebody that's like poor or trying to afford food because you're not going to be able to afford the alternatives. They are too expensive, just to be clear.
My dogs, and I love them so much, and I give them such a nice life, and I think like just how fucked up it is for like every other animal on earth.
I'm gonna be real with you. My mom spent $12,000 on the last dog that she had for like 2 years, maybe 3 or 4 years. She got him. The dog was kind of fucked up already. She spent $12,000 on the dog. Not like a dog she had from birth. She adopted dying dogs, and she spent $12,000. And I know that's not my money. It's not. It's my mother's money. She can do whatever she wants. But part of me is just like, it would have been my money when you die. I know that's a wrong thought, so I'm like, I'm being stupid. But $12,000 on a fucking dog with diabetes whose back legs don't work? What the fuck are you doing? Back in the day, we would just throw it. Now, I would never throw it, of course. All right. I hit it with a bolt gun. Nah, I'm kidding. That was a good one. That one was the one that came with Harold. And it's I hate you, Harold. I wish you were dead. I don't really wish that. That's terrible to say. But really, $12,000 on a fucking dog. You got my mother sitting here complaining about things. This is bad. This is bad. We got to vote for Trump. She doesn't say things like that exactly. But I know she voted for him. We talked about it. Yeah, I made her feel bad about it. Anyway. But you're talking about how things are tough right now. You're spending $12,000 on a fucking dog. How are you gonna be frustrated with the state of the economy, but you're gonna spend $12,000 on a fucking dog? So anyway, I just needed to. That was very cathartic for me to express. I needed to get that out. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
You know what I mean?
But dogs are different than cows, dude. You can't look at them the same way.
Why?
What?
I think.
Yeah, why? Eat the dogs too. Fuck it. Who gives a shit? Just fuck it. Don't fuck them though. Like, don't actually do it.
If you've had a relationship with a cow, you would probably disagree with that. I mean, dogs have a special place just because we've bred them specifically to live with us. So there's a special connection that people have with their animals, and cats too, dogs and cats. However, you can bond with a cow and a pig in the same way, Zach.
I mean,
Maybe a pig. Those things are cute.
I suppose.
And chickens too.
Now, it's obviously true that in countries like the US, culturally speaking, we do have a stronger and closer relationship with dogs and cats than we do the animals who we farm for food. But these animals are not worthy of moral consideration because of their connection to us. They're worthy of
Yeah, they are.
moral consideration because of who they are as individuals. Now,
True, they're just animals. Kill them and eat them.
obviously, Ethan loves his dogs, but even if Ethan had never met his dogs, even if the dogs were strays and had never been loved by any human, that wouldn't make hurting and killing them moral. A
Yeah.
non-human animal.
Oh yeah, let me ask you a question here, bud. What do you have to say about lesbians? Do you hate lesbians? Because based on everything you're saying, you don't like lesbians.
Animal does not need to have established a connection with us to deserve the right to their own body and life. But Ethan is absolutely right that when we spend time with animals like cows and chickens and pigs, we recognize that they are individuals, that they have personalities, likes and dislikes, that they have idiosyncratic behaviors that make them the
What the fuck? Yeah, they're definitely idiots.
individuals who they are. And so Ethan touches upon a really important point, which is that we don't look upon the animals we farm in the same way that we do the animals who we love in our homes. Yet there is no moral difference between these animals. The only difference is our perception, which is defined by our cultural attitudes. Yet culture doesn't determine what is moral. So just because culturally we may view dogs and pigs differently doesn't mean that ethically it's okay to kill pigs. What it means is that we need to update our cultural attitudes.
All their meat arrived.
Yeah, that was it. Thank you. I ordered 2 sides of steak. Thank you for that.
Let me see that, Amy. Hold it up.
It's always so. I'm gonna be real with you. It's always cringe to me, and I know I make the joke too, so I'm cringe. But when somebody's like vegan or something or vegetarian, and then like you're reacting to them, and you're like, "Oh yeah, well look at this," and you just have like a bunch of dead animals that you're shoveling into your mouth. It's like that is cringe. It's like low hanging fruit. It is fucking cringe. I'll tell you.
Does look good.
What do you think his name was, AB?
Damn, they probably don't name him. Maybe there's maybe a number.
George the cow.
Do you think that cow knew his mom or no? How old do
I hope not.
you think the cow was when they
That's even more sadder.
slaughtered it? I'm just kidding. I mean, like I said, I can't do that.
Old enough.
Just show it.
Old enough. Ew, what?
AB eating meat. Just put it on him. Just keep
Wait,
the
I got
music
food.
going.
Check this out, dude.
Sheesh.
I really think this dude is just taking some basic banter and joking around a little too seriously, discussing conversation. Really, while in this guy's defense, he's just a vegan and he's looking for opportunities to talk about his veganism. Like, unironically, he doesn't think we should be eating cows or anything, and so he's like, "Oh, here's a popular person in the celebrity drama-ish or the online drama sphere, and I'm gonna make a video and I'm gonna talk about it." And that's pretty much it. You know, and so factually, really, the guy's right about like everything he's saying. But as Priscilla Pixels has said in the chat, it's not that deep, right? That's pretty much it.
My talk did not get to you guys, it seems.
Nah. Or, yeah, it did. I care about the animals.
I find this really grim and horrible. I mean, I get that the
I'm
food
looking.
was ordered before the conversation started, but really, to dangle this piece of dead animal flesh in front of the camera, to eat it in an exaggerated way,
How am I looking right now?
incredibly disrespectful to a friend,
Incredible.
incredibly disrespectful to the animals, and
How am I
just
looking right
so ignorant to the brutality and violence that is
I have a
being
question. Do you think Zach would fuck me? Do you think Zach would be impressed by this? You think you're like, holy fuck, this guy's fucking... Because it's not just the... I mean, listen, I know it's not that big, but like you got a little bit of this, you got a little shreds and cuts, little striations, right? But then also the forearm is a little bit beefy. It's a little bit beefy, okay? So it's like, oh shit, like that's not that bad. I don't want to show you my left arm because I'm not exactly even on both sides. Don't want to show you that either. Okay, I'm not flexing anymore.
discussed. And I get that this podcast is it's meant to be light. It's probably sort of categorized as being a comedy podcast. It's all jokes and fun, and they have
and also as jokes and fun, and also genocidal defense rhetoric, guys. That's all Ethan does. Is he just defends genocide? Blah blah blah. I got people getting upset with me saying that stuff. I know he doesn't. That's not. He doesn't. He doesn't love it. He only genocide he likes is cow genocide. Okay. We love the Jews here, unironically.
A relationship between one another and camaraderie, and they can probably tease one another and do different things. They kind of poke fun at one another, and that kind of facilitates the general vibe of the show. But look, sometimes things are bigger than that. Sometimes things are more important.
This guy looks a little bit like Kurt Cobain. That's it.
Those things demand more awareness.
Or maybe the Red Hot Chili Peppers guy. You know that dude's dating like a fucking like 20-year-old? That's disgusting, bro.
Sensitivity than that. And we wouldn't...
It's not disgusting, but it's weird. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a young person. Just knock it off.
Tolerate that if someone was
she
doing that
wants
with dog flesh. We wouldn't tolerate that. We wouldn't think it was funny or acceptable if someone was saying things like, but dog steak tastes so nice, or someone was dangling a piece of dog flesh in front of the camera as someone was talking about how they care about dogs and they feel really awful about what happens to dogs. We would.
I'm be real. I would be like, okay, cool. Listen, this is the problem that you guys have. You're racist and I'm not. Oh, what does that mean? You know what that means? If there's some cultures that eat dog, and I'm not a judge. Their dogs aren't cute. They're ugly as shit, right? They haven't bred their dogs to be friends. They're just fucking assholes. They run around and eat shit, like, and they just like they're mean, right? They're just like. So if somebody came from another country and they're like, look at, I brought this dog meat with me from, I'm not going to say a country because I don't know, but you guys will take. I don't need any racist dog whistling because I'm not joking. And they're like, hey, this is yummy, and you're like, you want to try some? I say, yeah, it's culture. I'll try some of your dog meat. I'll try some of your dog meat. I'll try some of your cat meat. As long as it's healthy meat, I'm trying that meat. Okay? That's it. So you're sitting here, oh, well, we shouldn't eat dogs. People are like, you're racist, dude. You're fucking racist. First, he doesn't like the LGBTQ. Now he doesn't like it, the fucking insert marginalized group here. Fuck you, dude. I'm a good guy. All right? Fuck you.
We wouldn't tolerate that. We wouldn't think that's okay because it wouldn't be okay. But just because where we live or in the cultures where we're from, eating cows is normal and considered okay, doesn't mean that it is okay. And I think it really speaks volumes about how ingrained this immorality is, that even in such a situation where it's being discussed, and being discussed by a friend.
You think we'd eat Pokemon? You think we would eat Pokemon if Pokemon were real? You think that we would eat Pokemon? I think we would. And, my wife and I are going to do our podcast again soon. It's a little tough. It's the holidays. We're going to start up. We have 2 episodes up right now. You can go follow Rob and Dan right above us right now. You see it? It's not crazy on the screen. I'm going to ask her a question about Pokemon. That's very inappropriate next time we have a podcast. So if you want to check it out, I'll be episode 3. Okay.
And these people still value the comedy of it. Still value the mocking of it as being a higher priority than meaningfully engaging with what is being discussed.
My thing is like I try to buy food, meat where the cows haven't or the chicken hasn't been in like a factory type shit. Free roaming meat. In Sweden, there's this store and it's like completely normally priced, and every meat is like locally sourced from just a couple miles from this actual store.
Have you ever been?
It's called the Glory Hole store. It gets penises, guys. A joke. It's incredible.
To a local farm. They're amazing. And look, all sarcasm aside, the guy Love who's made that comment is eating meat from a takeaway. Where does he think that meat has come from? As vegans, we are used to hearing people say that they don't like factory farming and try their best not to support factory farming. But
here's what I would say. I don't give a fuck, dude. Thank you for $2 from Jack Esposito. Shout out to my HG Lexi NM top #1 pussy eater. Okay.
All know that that's just a story that people like to tell themselves to make themselves feel better. And also,
is there an eel Pokemon? Question answers it.
So the idea of local meat being more ethical just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Even the most intense.
Yeah, that's true because I live in Long Island, so the people out here are fucking annoying as shit, and the cows are too. So actually, it is ethical that we eat cows that are locally grown because they're fucking assholes, just like all the stupid assholes that live over here.
Intensive and cruel farms are local to someone. And can we stop trying to justify killing animals based on romanticized fairy tales about these idealistic systems of farming? And even if there was this supermarket in Sweden that only sourced local meat, that A, wouldn't make it ethical, and B, certainly doesn't justify consuming meat when you're in the US. And just to reiterate the point that I was making earlier, just because there are some systems of animal farming that are not as bad as other systems does not mean that they are therefore ethical. Just because you can be more cruel does not make being cruel ethical as a result. We don't call it ethical bullying when a bully decides to only bully two.
Just to be clear, again, I think we should at the very least acknowledge the reason that we eat meat is we used to have to eat meat. We used to have to eat meat. Like, we live in this kind of pretend fantasy land where it's like, it's just unethical. Why would we ever do this? Because we used to have to. And as technology arises, that does change with our deeper understanding of nutrition and whatnot. And meat alternatives, whether it's a plant protein or crickets or whatever. But this entire infrastructure exists because we used to have to do this. And now things are changing very slowly, but things are changing. And that's a good thing. Now we don't have to eat meat, but we do, okay? Because you did have to eat meat back then. Like, you do need a balance of different micro and macronutrients in your body. So it was like imperative. It's easier. It's imperative. You have an understanding. You didn't used to have an understanding of like protein and carbs and fat. You would just have a hunger for particular things, and you needed to satisfy those hungers, or else you would get malnourished in some capacity. Right now, we're not in the place where we have to do that anymore.
Times a week rather than 5 times a week. If something is cruel and wrong, it's cruel and wrong, irrespective of whether or not you could do that thing more cruel than you currently do it. But I think right now at the end, it's important just to circle back to Ethan. Ethan is someone who clearly has compassion and empathy for animals. I think clearly Ethan doesn't quite know just how bad the problem is. And I think we were probably all like that at some point as vegans, where we were starting to grapple with the issue, but didn't quite fully appreciate the scope of just how terrible it is, just how bad and immoral it really is. I was just like that at one point. And I think that films like Dominion and Earthlings are perfect.
Oh man, you're giving me the that vegan teacher vibes.
Because they take people who have empathy for animals and they make those people confront the true reality of what it is that they're paying for. That's what Earthlings did for me. I was thinking about these issues, but I didn't quite fully understand just how severe and terrible what we do to animals really is. And I think that maybe a film like Earthlings or Dominion could do the same for Ethan, because he is someone who has compassion for animals, but maybe just needs to be sat down and just needs to be encouraged to watch something that actually shows him what he's paying for, so that when he's thinking about buying animal products again, he can properly connect the purchase he is making with the reality of what he is supporting. But anyway, that brings me to the end of this video.
What if we just kidnapped him and we just showed him people getting subjected to the same treatment, and then he made him eat a human burger? That'll show empathy. But then it turns out he likes it a lot, and he can't stop. He has an irresistible hunger for it. And so he starts creating his own underground slaughterhouse where he captures children and adults, and he starts grinding them up and eating them and experimenting. And he goes through this whole entire ordeal of getting addicted to human meat to the point where he can't eat anything but that. It's either plants or humans. And then after a few years, he slowly goes, I can't do this anymore. I have to stop. And he just goes vegan. And for a while it works. And then one day, something happens. Right? He's walking around, sees a homeless guy laying on the street. He's dead. He's already dead. But he was freshly dead. He's not quite rancid meat. So he grabs him. Maybe he just cuts off a toe. Looks at it. You know, the homeless guy probably has a fire. So puts a stick through it. Holds it over the fire. Grills up that meat. Takes a taste of it. Obviously peels back that toenail first. Takes a taste of it. It's not that good. Because this guy's homeless, right? That's all through the cracks. But it still awakens the hunger. He's like, holy fuck. Holy fuck, this was so good. Because you know most people who do drugs, they relapse at some point. And so he goes out, and he goes and he tries to find someone else, someone better. Just a little bit better. And he has a lot of money. And so the next place he stops by is he stops by maybe a funeral home. You know, he pays the guy a little extra money. Usually, you pay that money to fuck the body. But this time, I just want maybe a toe or something better. Maybe not a toe, maybe a finger, you know? Maybe you position the body in a way where they don't see the hands, right? Because you need a better corpse, a more of a middle-class corpse that wasn't subjected to the horrible realities of being homeless, mental health issues, and falling through the cracks and whatnot. So he grabs that finger and he eats it, and he's like, holy shit. Not bad. Better. A little better. There's still something about it. It's not fresh. It's not fresh like the meat that I used to eat. And so what does Ethan do? He goes out. He goes to the deep web maybe. Finds somebody who wants to die. There are people who may want to die, but he wants his body to be used for good. And the good to that guy is I want to sell it. The person that he buys the meat from, he thinks that that person thinks they're a failure. That person thinks that they're a failure and they want to provide. And Ethan says, you know what? I'll give you $100,000 for your body to your family. Done. The guy's like, you know what? I'm going to do that. I can provide something for my family. And so he does the exchange, gives the money to the family, takes the body back. He kills it in the perfect way. I, of course, would not know because I am not a connoisseur of human meats. But Ethan knows. Ethan knows. He's done this a lot. And so he grabs it. He's been studying. And he precisely cuts the body, drains it in the perfect way, and preserves the meat absolutely perfectly. Just beautifully. Lays the body down, cuts it up, all that. Maybe the next day, he decides to have a little bit, right? Because, you know, he wanted to get a little extra day. Sometimes there's a thrill and depriving your body a little bit, right? And so he waits a day. Family's out of the house. He's to himself. A normal person like Papa got, he would just jerk it off. You just jork it. But not Ethan. Goes downstairs. He finds his favorite part of the body, and that's the thigh. Ethan enjoys a nice thigh. A little fatty, this person's thigh, but it's kind of perfect. It still has a good consistency of meat. It's like an 83-20, an 83-17 cut. An 85-15, right? Cuts it up. He tastes the meat. Seasons it perfectly. He's ready for that succulent flavor of the meat. And he tastes it. But there's something missing. There's something missing from the meat. It's just a little too sweet, and he doesn't understand why. He used the same exact seasoning, the same preparation methods, the same amount of time that it took to create this food just a year or so ago, right before he got over his addiction. And you'd think he'd love it because he's hungry for it. He's hungry for it. There's a hunger there. He's not just eating food. He's starving emotionally and even physically for this food. And he starts thinking. He sits down and he tries to think, and nothing comes to him. And he goes to bed that night and he's thinking, and he's laying up awake at night. His wife's sleeping soundly. And it comes to him. He finally realizes it. It's not just about the meat. It's about the torture. There's a thrill in understanding that life of that person was created just to satisfy his palate. There's something about the hormones that are released into that meat when the person knows that they're going to die, but they're afraid of it. You see, the person that he paid $100,000 for, the fear wasn't right. There was a fear of no longer living, but the fear of not providing for his family outweighed that. And so there was a blissfulness in their death. It wasn't right. And so he had to come up with a new plan. And that new plan was he had to find somebody on the street, and he had to subject them to the psychological torture of them knowing they were going to die before the consumption of the meat. And that's the story of Ethan Klein's addiction to meat.